weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
the People's Channel?
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Tonight on The Late Show Live, one Boris Johnson launches an all-out attack on Nigel Farage and Reform UK. Hello, good evening. Breaking exclusively on The Late Show Live tonight. The future of the Tory party lies where, Boris?
So you're here to attack me for saying...
I'm not attacking
calling him a
you.
Putin.
Maybe think in the light of Charlie Kirk, that kind of language. President Trump getting a bullet to his ear, avoiding assassination on a golf course. Is the language of former Prime Minister Boris Johnson. The interview with me tonight, and it got a little bit heated. I asked him about Nigel Farage.
That comes sweetly in the definition of apologising for Vladimir Putin.
Find out what his biggest mistake was.
I would argue that one of the biggest, the single biggest mistake was to...
And he's got a solution to illegal migration.
Well,
they claim it's illegal migration. But
the way it's not illegal migration is...
And of course, I asked what he thought of our current Prime Minister, the one Sir Keir Starmer.
Honestly, you can delete this because it's late night, but...
And the question on everybody's lips, does President Trump deserve a Nobel Peace Prize? And we're live in Washington, D.C., just yards from the White House, bringing you the stories America's talking about and that matter to Britain too, including this one.
The radical left is causing the problem. They're out of control.
President Trump is unleashing America's counter-terror machine on the radical left. Nice idea. Plus...
Love these moments of discovery and beauty. So let's be curious together. Do you know who doesn't like lobster?
Who?
My husband.
And you're married?
Oh, past the sick bucket. Has the world gone absolutely mad? Because on the same night President Trump was snubbed of the Nobel Peace Prize, Harry and Meghan are crowned, get this, Humanitarians of the Year. Also...
You're making a big mistake.
Mr. Tyson, yes, I will talk to your wife.
Trust me, do not answer the phone. A lot of people are going to be calling you, trying to get your dirty laundry.
A lot of activity. You don't know what's going on here.
I know.
Oh, dear me, I love that film. My favourite, stock market chaos tonight because Wall Street has plunged as Donald Trump announces the US will impose an additional 100% tariff on imports from China.
We launched shortly after from John Thune Airport, and within 5 minutes or so of our flight.
Devastating scenes there. A major blast at a Tennessee explosives plant has left several dead and 19 others missing. I'm Ben Leo. This is The Late Show Live, and your night's just getting started. Hello, good evening viewers and listeners. Thank you for your company. Just moments ago I sat down with our former Prime Minister Boris Johnson for a wide-ranging and at times fiery interview. From Gaza to President Trump, the future of the Tory party, Robert Jenrick, Kemi Badenoch, his views on Reform UK, Nigel Farage and even banning the burqa. Well, he had plenty to say. Here's part 1 of the exclusive chat. Boris Johnson, welcome along. Hello, welcome to The Late Show Live. I'm sure you're an avid viewer by now. We've been on air for many weeks.
Your name goes for you, of course.
Many topics to get stuck into, not least Gaza, of course. Your thoughts, please, on the situation in Gaza. Does President Trump deserve a Nobel Peace Prize?
Well, I think that you've got to be realistic and accept that this would simply not have happened had it not been for the work of President using his own office, the power of his office, and the force of his own personality. And look, both sides unquestionably came under huge pressure from America. He put the hard word on Netanyahu. You know, it's difficult for Netanyahu, this whole thing. He's got some people in his coalition, hard-line right-wingers, nationalist guys who haven't signed up to it, who could bring down his coalition. Netanyahu's, political future not necessarily clear once this thing goes through, and then Hamas. Difficult for them. They're being asked to give away their one piece of leverage with Israel, and namely the hostages. And it's disgusting that they've had them for so long. It's absolutely morally obnoxious. But that's it. They have, and they're losing that. They're being asked to give up their weapons. They're going to have no say in the governance of Gaza. A lot of I think a lot of Hamas people will look at this and think it's a defeat. And it is. So he's pushed. So what I'm trying to say is Trump, by the sheer kind of bouncy castle, explosive force of his personality, has pushed these people into doing things that they might not have done, certainly I don't think would have done without his agency, right? Without his effort. And so, look, but when it comes to the Nobel Prize...
He was snubbed, of course, today. He was snubbed, but...
Machado is a good choice.
But she has today said this is in dedication to President Trump. I'm not sure if you saw that, but
I missed that.
She's come out and said, this is for you, President Trump. Thank you for bringing peace to the world. So.
Well, that's a very, very good thing for her to say. And he does deserve. I mean, he's going to absolutely stick in the craw of the lefties around the world. Well, I haven't watched any of that. I mean, because we're all here in Washington, I haven't been able to observe whether there've been sort of, Jeremy Burns been breakdancing down, and whether the BBC's been,
Oh, trust me, Trump derangement syndrome.
Is there champagne around in the editorial conferences of The Guardian as the hostages are being released? Are they thrilled that Donald Trump is going to,
of course not.
I don't know.
Trump derangement syndrome is alive and kicking both sides of the pond. Talking of lefties, did Keir Starmer help or hinder the Gaza situation?
Look, honestly, you can delete this because it's late night, but it's a fart in the gale, right? This recognition.
Why did he bother? Why did he wait until President Trump left?
Why did he?
Starmer waited for President Trump to leave before recognising Palestine as a state.
I don't know. I mean, it's not what I would have done, and the reason is that you should do. What is it? How can you possibly recognise Palestine as a state now? I mean, it doesn't really make sense under the 1933 Convention on the Recognition of our country follows. And look at Palestine. It's not clear who its government is. It's shared. You've got the Palestinian Authority. You've got Hamas. They don't particularly care for each other. They run different bits. One of them is a psychopathic Islamofascist terrorist death cult, and the others pretty incompetent. It's not brilliant. The boundaries are not clear. The governance is not clear. It doesn't qualify.
And by the way,
So what I'm saying is, look, ultimately. Yes, and actually it's there in Donald Trump's 20-point plan. Ultimately, yes, a part of this process has got to be also to try to recognise the legitimate desire of Palestinian people to try to run their own lives, okay?
Yeah.
That's fair enough. So to make progress towards that is right. But prematurely recognising a state when it doesn't really exist makes no sense.
Yeah, and also...
in my view, it did nothing. It was construed by our friends in Israel as rewarding Hamas for terror. It was a mistake.
And Hamas, of course, in the last 24 hours, they have said that regardless of Hamas being a terrorist nutcase death cult, they've said they want Tony Blair to have nothing to do with post-war Gaza. So I don't know what it says about Tony Blair. But can we move on to domestic matters?
I mean, to be fair to Blair, and I don't know why we would be, but to be fair to Tony, actually, I think that when you look at that agreement the work that's gone on between all the sides, between the Qataris and Hamas and Egypt, and everybody's been involved in this thing, and I think that Blair has been useful. To be fair, and it's look, this is. I mean, I know that people find this difficult, and and because Donald Trump has unquestionably helped to deliver this, there isn't quite the jubilation you'd expect on the left. But for most serious, sensible people, this is a good moment.
Well, can you imagine if it was Biden or Obama?
Oh, of course. No, you're making. I'm sure you know everybody's been saying this all day, but that's absolutely right. And it's a good moment, and it's not the end of the story. I mean, there's a lot of difficult things still to clear up, right?
Sure.
I mean, two of those things that I've already mentioned: Hamas disarming, Hamas understanding that it's not going to be part of the governments of Gaza, Israel understanding that this is the beginning of a conversation about Palestinians.
Yeah, could be the beginning of the end, hopefully.
So it could be the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
It really could be. And that's I mean, we've had 2 years of everybody. It's been really debilitating.
Even across the West. Even across the West. The protests on the streets, the Islamism on the streets. I was in New York a couple of nights ago. People holding Hamas flags on the street.
Hopefully all that will now die down.
Okay, let me take you back to the UK. Tory conference has just finished.
I mean, I'm sorry, I've been here, but we've been here.
Yes.
I've been here. So
did you see much of Kemi?
I've got to.
No,
I heard good things about it. I heard very, very good things about it.
The future of the Tory party lies where, Boris? Kemi, Robert Jenrick, somebody else?
With Kemi. And honestly, I think. Look, I heard very good things about it. I saw the clip about stamp duty, which is completely the right thing to do.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yes. Get rid of it.
Get rid of it. And dead right. And thinking about it, and also, do you know what I like about it? The whole mood about our party conference, and I was actually invited, but sadly I couldn't go.
Was that a sign of something?
Yeah, it was very, very promising. But I think what I liked about it was...
You would have helped to boost with the polls and the media, the ratings. You would have given them some oomph, Boris.
No. But what I like about it is it's got a bit of balls about it, because what they're doing is they're saying we're not just because the strategy has been very much in the last 10, 15 years, keep focusing on the baby boom voters. Keep never mind young people, they never vote Tory. Never mind young people, they never vote Tory. Well, that's over for us as a Tory party. We've got to be going for those people, and you're never going to get
reformer.
Yeah, and by the way, so if you look at a lot of the Trump voters, it's very interesting.
Yeah, Charlie Kirk credited with that.
This is absolutely true. I gave a speech 2 days ago in Virginia, and I said, it was an audience of about 10,000 students, and I said something broadly favourable about Donald Trump, and they cheered.
Yeah, times are changing.
Stone the crows.
Yeah, times are changing.
So, and so I think Kemi, back to your point, Kemi is completely right to start to think about rebuilding for the future. Young people have got every incentive to vote Conservative. If you want a safer neighbourhood, if you want better job opportunities, if you want your country to be going places, if you want to be able to get your foot on the property ladder, if you want to be able to own your own home, vote Conservative.
I agree.
And so that is where she needs to go.
The only problem is, Boris, and to use your turn of phrase, and we can beat this out because it's pre-recorded, some would argue you had a massive majority in 2019. I don't want to go over the Boris wave again, it's been done, but of course there's net zero as well, which many people aren't happy with now. You've got mass migration, you've got quantitative easing from COVID.
When I left office, right, we were barely behind Labour at all, and we were in the mid-30s in the polls, right? Okay.
But since then, a lot's happened.
But not
many prime ministers.
Yeah, but you know my argument on this.
Yeah.
I think we goofed. I think we should have stuck with the.
Well, I was going to say, to use your language, the Tories, maybe not you personally, the Tories have spaffed it up the wall, whatever sort of trust they had with the public. So I guess that is the big challenge now for the Conservative Party.
But I think I would argue that one of the biggest, the single biggest mistake was we had the biggest majority for, 40 years, or the biggest share of the vote, certainly 44% of the vote. 44% of the vote. We're now on, less than 20% as far as I can make out sometimes. We were on 44% of the vote. We had a huge coalition. We had every reason to stick with it, and people voted for it.
Yeah.
And so I think, the goof was in 2022, in the sort of post-COVID panic and recrimination, they chucked me overboard, and I think it was a colossal goof, and,
I think,
and we would not have lost in 2024. We would not have lost.
Well, that brings me on to my next question. Talking about China, the situation with Keir Starmer and the pressure he's under to do with this whole China story and the case that's collapsed. You were brought down arguably by some crusty M&S sandwiches in Downing Street, and then Hansi Chris Pincher finished you off. To use a turn of phrase, and then you were gone. How has Keir Starmer? I mean, he's like Teflon. He's like kind of like Keith Vaz, who nothing can touch him. How does he survive still? Should he resign over this?
The deranged system we have in the Tory party.
But you were brought down by sandwiches.
Yeah, but it's we have a system where it takes 15% of your backbenchers to write some letters, and then it all goes. That's the problem we have with it. But look, there's no point crying over spilt milk. I think Kenny is doing the right thing. She's got, her speech was excellent.
Have you spoken to her? Have you even her advice?
I'm in touch with her. Yeah.
Are you in touch with Robert Jenrick?
Intermittently. I'm in touch with lots of times. I'm a proud Conservative.
That was part one of my interview with Boris Johnson, and it gets a lot spicier. Consider that a bit of a flavour of what's to come. Next in the interview is Boris's attack on Nigel Farage and Reform UK. You don't want to miss what he's got to say, and I'm looking forward to what Reform and indeed Nigel Farage, how they'll respond to that. At the top of the next hour, part two includes this moment where I pressed him on his language surrounding Reform. Here's a taste. Maybe think in the light of Charlie Kirk, that kind of language. President Trump getting a bullet to his ear, avoiding assassination on a golf course. Is the language a bit too much?
What do you...
Let me know your thoughts on this. gbnews.com/your say. I can see the comments absolutely steaming in. It's fair to say that, many of you not Boris fans anymore, blaming him for the Boris wave, of course. Well, joining me now to provide reaction to the first part of that interview is my panel in London, the former Conservative Party advisor Oscar Redrop and the Washington editor of The Times, Katy Balls. Good evening to you both. Thank you for your company at this late hour. Katy, ladies first, what's your take on that first part of the interview, particularly his backing for Kemi Badenoch?
Yeah, he was fairly supportive, wasn't he? I mean, I think he said he enjoyed her speech. He obviously praised the stamp duty cut. It was interesting when you asked, he said he was in touch, and is he also in touch with Robert Jenrick, who is a big headache for Kemi Badenoch at the moment, even if she says he's not. And he didn't deny that one either. So I think it was warm words for Kemi Badenoch, but I think what tends to happen with the Tory party is they'll say one thing publicly, and that doesn't mean that behind the scenes people are complimenting the leader in that way. Though I think the Tory conference could have gone a lot worse for Kemi Badenoch than it did. It probably surprised on the upside to a degree.
Oscar, you're nodding your head.
Yeah, I think Katy's right. You can look. I mean, I don't know why I was named as a former Conservative Party advisor. I'm a former Boris Johnson advisor on Tonight of All Night. It's very good to see him over there with you, Ben. Look, I think Boris is right. I think he honed in a little bit on the optimism that actually shone through at the Conservative Party conference for Kemi. Kemi has a lot of strengths. I'd say in a slightly roundabout way, she has similar strengths with Boris, I would say. And I want to see more of that. And those strengths that I talk about, she has a boldness. And she's able, I think for the first time, arguably, actually, at conference, she was able to project a future vision. And the Conservative Party, over the last couple of years, have been crying out for that optimism and kind of blue sky thinking, projection of ideas. And I actually think Kemi, at conference, I think we saw that. And I think Boris would have watched that and been really impressed with that speech.
Really? Oscar, you remind me of, what's his name? Comical Ali from the Second Gulf War. I've used this example a couple of times, but, when the tanks are rolling into Baghdad behind him, he's saying, everything's fine, no, it's great, the Americans aren't here. Meanwhile, there's F-16s flying behind him. Are you not a bit deluded, Oscar? Come on.
I'm not. Look, I'm a proud and loyal Conservative and probably always will be, but you do... The delusion only kicks in to avoid the depression, and the depression would be that Reform are utterly charging and surging, and they have been for quite some time now. All Conservatives can pretend it's a flash in the pan. It's quite clearly not. I'm sure you'll tease it out in the second part of this Boris interview, but I think no one understands the threat that Reform ultimately posed better than Boris himself.
OK, well, stay tuned for the second part of that interview because he takes aim at Farage and Reform UK. Katie, there's lots of comments coming in on gbnews.com/your say. Luke has said Boris failed to deliver on Brexit and illegal migration, fractured Tory party, and now this anti-Britain Labour Party is making it a lot worse. It's his fault. Vicky said, I was a Tory, never again after what happened with Boris. And somebody said, any good things Boris may have done were more than outweighed by the bad, which were catastrophic. Is his endorsement of Kemi Badenoch really helpful for Kemi?
I mean, I don't think his endorsement is toxic, if that's the suggestion. But I don't think it's one where, to your point, people sitting at home are going to go, oh, right, I wasn't sure about Kemi Badenoch. Now Boris says she's fine, let's go for it. But I think that, to your point about Boris Johnson and his legacy, he really brushed off in that interview when you talked about, you know, the problems the Tories have and how some of that links back to his premiership, decisions he made, saying, well, I just needed a bit longer and it would have all been fine. And I think that is what jars with quite a lot of voters. When you think about just, you know, for lots of people it's different issues. So for some people it's still things like Partygate. For some people it's, if you think about, you know, taxation. For some people it's going to be, you know, all across things, but particularly the Boris wave. But I think there is a sense that he talks about having this really big majority and they should have had time to do it. The counter is he had a really big majority and it just didn't live up to what voters expected that they would get from that. And I think that is a problem that he and the Conservatives are still having to reckon with.
Yeah, I know, and what a waste. I used his terminology, I won't repeat the phrase, but I used his terminology when it came to that election win in 2019. You know, did it up the wall. You blew it, basically. And I feel kind of sorry for Boris because he won election, obviously, had a massive majority, then he had to deal with COVID. I mean, I could sit here all day and argue with Boris about COVID, but it's been said and done, so I wasn't going to waste my time. But Oscar, Casey, thank you very much. We'll catch up very soon. Appreciate your company live from London. Keep those comments coming in, viewers. gbnews.com/your say. Nick, you've said Nigel Farage handed Brexit on a plate to Boris by standing down Brexit Party candidates. Boris and the Tories blew it. They didn't take full advantage. I think those sentiments are probably echoed far and wide. Anyway, still ahead on the Late Show Live.
I think that comes sweetly in the definition of apologising for.
I'll bring you part 2 of the exclusive interview with Boris Johnson, where things got a little bit heated. He accused me of attacking him, and he definitely attacked Nigel Farage and Reform UK. You won't want to miss what he had to say about them. Elsewhere, Canterbury Cathedral has come under fire from JD Vance, the Vice President here in the United States, for their less than appealing makeover. Look at the state of that if you're watching on TV. Graffiti scrawled all over the inside of a church. I think the Church of England have well and truly lost their head. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to the Late Show Live. Me, Ben Leo. Now, did you see this earlier today? Canterbury Cathedral has been hit with massive controversy after graffiti-style slogans were scrawled all over. They are on the screen now, all over its ancient walls. An absolute disgrace. US Vice President J.D. Vance slammed the installation on X earlier today, saying it had made a beautiful historical building really ugly to represent marginalised communities. Goodness me, Caroline Farrow, Catholic journalist and commentator, joins me now. Caroline, give me a break. Marginalised communities by scrawling graffiti all over the inside of a church. What's that about?
Yeah, it's just so ugly, isn't it? I looked at that, and even though I'm a Catholic, I just found it so upsetting. Canterbury Cathedral is a UNESCO site. It's one of the oldest Christian sites in Britain. This is the cradle of English Christianity, and where our ancestors worshipped for more than 1,000 years. They built it to lift the human heart to God, and now they've just made it look, as J.D. Vance says, really ugly. I mean, to be honest, it looks like a crime-ridden estate or a bleak underpass. It's just horrible.
Yeah. What's wrong, Caroline, with the Church of England? I mean, they seem to have lost their way a bit, and all the comments online today were saying, look, we've just completely given up with the Church of England. They've just gone astray. They've just lost their heads.
Yeah, well, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Obviously, somebody very well-meaning thought, OK, we have this cathedral and it's a great site for tourism. So they're trying to use it as a dual-purpose site. Of course, it's a house of God, it's a place of worship and of reverence, but they're also appreciating that lots of tourists go who may not be Christian. So they're trying to inspire tourists to start thinking about God, you know. And
sounds like a load of nonsense. I don't know, Caroline, what graffiti has to do with marginalised communities. Let me just bring in my panel here in Washington, D.C. It's a reporter for the Daily Caller, Ashley Braisfield, and the journalist and broadcaster, Angelina McCarthy. Welcome along, ladies. Oh, I'm outnumbered tonight. Lucky me. Ashley, we'll start with you. J.D. Vance has weighed in on this tonight. Such is the extent of the craziness. What's your take when you saw this?
You know, I saw that the comment from the church was unsanitized was the word they used. I thought that was very strange coming from a church. Personally, I'm a Christian. Found it very odd that a church would do this in general, obviously trying to appeal to marginalized communities. And I don't understand how you couldn't do that with, just, rhetoric from the Bible, Jesus in general. That's my take.
Are you religious, Ashley?
I am religious, yes.
Yeah.
I'm Protestant, actually, as well, so.
OK. Can you see a situation where you're going to get sort of Church of England churchgoers, congregations moving over to maybe Catholicism after this, and different examples of just craziness from the Church of England?
Well, I think there's a large increase in young males actually doing this, specifically with Catholicism itself. We're seeing this in America at extremely high rates. A recent poll came out on this. I'm hearing it amongst people my age. I'm 25, so I think this is not unusual in my case for something like this to happen.
Angelina, your take?
Well, you see this type of art in Protestant churches in America all the time. Personally, I'm Catholic, so this doesn't seem sacrilegious to me at all. This is also subjective. It is a form of modern art. Graffiti is a form of modern art. So whether or not you like that, that's a personal opinion. And I find it interesting that J.D. Vance is weighing his thoughts, his line. Where's J.D. Vance's line? This is the same administration that wanted to propose guns in churches, but his line is graffiti in churches. Like, the hypocrisy is written on the wall. Maybe we should graffiti that there.
But actually, Caroline, that did come. Sorry, you go ahead. I was going to raise a point. You go ahead, Caroline.
Yeah. No, I would say it's not hypocrisy, because the thing is, when you're in a church, you're wanting to pray and be calm and be still, and these graffiti on the walls is very distracting. It's not drawing your mind towards God. It's jarring. It's dissonant. It's noisy. I can understand if they wanted to do this, they should have done it in a separate building. By all means, have an art installation, but somewhere else, not where people are trying to, to pray, to be transcendent, to contemplate on beauty and goodness and the divine order. Yeah. And now we're just sort of making it look, as I said before, like a crime-ridden estate. I mean, basically, a church is about stillness, a reverence, a beauty. It's supposed to be speaking of the divine, and it's now been drowned out by this sort of visual noise. So I can well understand J.D. Vance's comments, and I agree with them.
All right,
this is horrible.
Yeah, Caroline, thank you so much. We're pushed for time, so I have to let you go, but really appreciate you staying up. And you're quite right. That graffiti looks like my 6-year-old child's been scribbling and scrawling on the walls. Caroline, thank you. We'll catch up soon. Ashley and Angelina, you'll be sticking with me tonight on The Late Show Live. Coming up tonight. How did the Conservatives tackle the threat of reform? Because 5 months ago, Boris, you spoke to Patrick Christys, my colleague. Yes, great. Yes. You said to Patrick, of course the Conservatives will recover, and Patrick said, you don't see a Prime Minister Farage then, and you said absolutely not. That was 5 months ago. Since then, reform have been topping every single poll going by some significant margin. Have you changed your mind on that? I love Boris's little looks away from the camera and the scruff of the hair. What does he really make of the rise of Reform UK? And you do not want to miss his comments about Nigel Farage. I suspect they're going to cause quite a stir. That exclusive Part 2 interview coming up in the next hour. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Do you not maybe think in the light of Charlie Kirk, that kind of language? President Trump getting a bullet to his ear, avoiding assassination on a golf course. Is the language a bit too much?
What do you...
That was Boris Johnson's reaction when I questioned his language about Reform UK and Nigel Farage. Stay tuned on The Late Show Live to hear exactly what he had to say about Reform and Nigel. I think you'll be pretty stirred by it. That's coming up very shortly. But first of all, let's take a look at some of the newspaper front pages hitting the shelves in Blighty tomorrow. Splashing, well, later today, isn't it? It's midnight. Splashing on the front page of the Daily Mail, The China Spy in My Office by top Tory. It's been revealed that a parliamentary researcher accused of spying for Beijing was at the heart of government policy in China. And that's a world exclusive from the Mail there. And up the top, Paul Gascoigne, a memoir as colourful, candid and endlessly surprising as the troubled football legend himself. Gaza, I hope he's doing better these days. In the Times tomorrow, Israel begins Gaza retreat. A fragile ceasefire in Gaza appeared to be holding strong last night after Israel completed the first stage of its withdrawal and thousands of Palestinians began trekking home. The initial withdrawal by the IDF completed at noon, local time yesterday. It triggered a 72-hour window in which Hamas must release the hostages. The Sun tomorrow, live forever in our hearts, Ricky. It's the funeral yesterday of Ricky Hatton on the front page of The Sun. Oasis star Liam Gallagher said farewell to Ricky, his good friend, as a touching farewell was given at the boxing legend's star-studded funeral. The front page also shows the singer kissing his hand before placing it on his friend's coffin as he left Manchester Cathedral, where the Oasis hit Live Forever reduced mourners to tears. This side of the pond, the New York Post headline reads, "Learning no lessons," as they report on a suspected Antifa professor who compared the feds to Nazis and brought a loaded gun to an ICE protest. This is a teacher in a college. Nigel Farage yesterday saying that these schools and institutions, educational institutions in the UK, absolutely riddled with Marxists. It seems the same thing is happening here. Let me know your thoughts on those front pages, gbnews.com/your say. Joining me again from London is the former number 10 advisor Oscar Redrop and the Washington editor of The Times, Katie Balls. Welcome back, you two. What story do you want to get stuck into, Oscar? What's caught your eye?
Would you mind if I moved off the politics a little bit on a bit of more of a personal note? Just the Ricky Hatton funeral that actually has taken up a lot of the front pages here today. Like Ricky Hatton, I remember me and my dad when I was a kid, we got up at about 3 a.m. in the morning so we could watch him stateside fighting, and he was a true working class hero in this country and actually took so many fans across over stateside where you are, Ben. Like the impact of that man actually transcended boxing, transcended the sport, and you know, the circumstance of his death, you know, brings up all kinds of things around mental health, and because he was always known as such a party guy, you know, said yes to every photo, you know, shook every single hand, and yet in private had these tremendous demons and battles. And so I think it's poignant. It made me think of, you know, me and my dad and how I got into boxing as a fan, not as a competitor, I may add. And so, you know, in a way, like, yes, the politics of the day, but this is the story that really touched me on the front pages today.
Yeah, you're quite right, Oscar. I remember, was it 2009 he fought Pacquiao? I remember, same as you, being up in the early hours of the morning. I've been on a night out, actually, in Brighton and came back and was listening to it on the radio. Yeah, what a guy. And it just goes to show, Katie, as well, you never really know what's going on in people's heads, do you, and their minds. I remember there was a video of Ricky in the gym a week before his death, and he looked fine. He was talking about how motivated he was, and then a week later, it appears, judging by the statements at his funeral, that he tragically took his life, Katie.
Yeah, no, completely. And just because someone's laughing publicly one moment doesn't mean they're not having problems behind the scenes, vice versa. So I think it's probably just another reminder. And I think particularly if you think about, and as you say, we're just going on various statements, but mental health, particularly in men, those rates, sometimes it's a story that's less looked at, it's less where the focus is, but it is one where I think everyone has to be quite aware.
Yeah, indeed. OK, I'm going to bring my panel in now. Hopefully you'll fit on the screen. My panel here in Washington, D.C., Angelina and Ashley Bracefield. Welcome along, you two. Any stories that caught your eye? What about this one from the New York Post? Because there's been a professor, it appears, who compared the feds here in the US to Nazis and brought a loaded gun, Ashley, to an ICE protest. And this comes off the back today news that President Trump is going after these far-left organisations, the likes of Soros, who's funded Antifa in the past. What's your take on this? Why are your institutions, and ours as well, I'll add, why are they riddled with these kind of people?
Yeah, you're exactly right. It just shows the deep social rot that is occurring in academia in the United States as well as in the United Kingdom as well. Culturally, we share a lot of that, I would say. And going forward, of course, the Trump administration has designated this group as a foreign terrorist organization as well as a domestic terrorist organization, rightfully so. In order for many of these cities like Portland, like Chicago, that these individuals are attacking federal agents, and that is what the president has done, putting these National Guard in these cities to protect them and protect people in those communities.
Do you support what ICE are doing here? Because we look at the United States as Brits, of course, and we see illegal migration has been absolutely obliterated under President Trump. It's almost at zero now. And some of us look over in envy, but then there is the argument that ICE are kind of running riot and maybe not having due process. What's your take on it?
I do think that you have to have justice within the system. Many of these individuals are attacking federal agents. Of course, you should be protecting federal agents at all costs. But with a college professor that is teaching the young minds of our country, you gotta put your foot down. This is one example of the extremes that takes place that the Trump administration is trying to prevent.
Yeah. Good point. Angelina, the Trump administration, spearheaded by Stephen Miller, are going after all these far-left organisations, particularly political violence, such as this professor, this person who's meant to be teaching your young people, who had a loaded gun at an ICE protest. Some people are accusing the Trump administration of just going after their political adversaries. What's your take?
I would say that definitely the Trump administration is going after his political adversaries. It's anyone who disagrees with the Trump administration and the Trump administration's agenda. I would say there is political violence on both sides, and you just look at history, that's a fact. We've talked about this 100 times. Political violence, violence in general, especially gun violence, it stems from mental health. That's something that the Republican Party very much agrees upon. So it's coming from a place of mental health, but all of a sudden when it's specifically, this person that Trump wants to be Antifa or associated with Nazis, it's no longer mental health, it's now the radical left. No, we have a severe mental health problem in America, and there's political violence on the left and the right, there's gun violence on the left and the right, and that needs to be addressed.
Ashley, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I completely agree that there's a mental health crisis in this country, but I don't think it relates, to guns in a lot of ways. Of course, many of these people, had the mental health crisis. Guns don't kill people, people kill people argument in a lot of ways. That's just all really I have to say on that.
Oh, something's just dropped in the studio. Oscar, wouldn't it be nice in the UK if we had a similar investigation into the likes of, well, look, first of all, Soros funded Best for Britain, the anti-Brexit movement back in 2016-17. But wouldn't it be nice to know a little bit more about the likes of, I don't know, Hope Not Hate, Socialist Worker, Care for Calais, these NGOs? Because the argument here is that they're charities, basically. They're protected by charitable status. Maybe all these organisations in the UK are completely legitimate, but I argue we need to know a little bit more about them. Who is funding them? Where is their donor money coming from?
Yeah, it really truly would be fascinating. We have similar forces in the UK for sure, and actually I'd say it's more than just kind of charity and charitable status organisations. It's kind of widespread in our institutions that should remain apolitical, and it often tends to be they just naturally, there's that left-leaning filter and lens on so many of them, and it's actually something that I think Reform have picked up on very cleverly. I think that's something that they would go after in power for sure. It is widespread, and you do have to question, particularly because politics It matters so much to people, and how politics is felt. It's not just, you know, tuning into Westminster every day. It is your life. It's your daily life, and people expect a lot of the time from their institutions. They expect something that is detached from that is just true to the values. Often, you know, and I know people cringe at it, but the values of the UK, and so many of them act in the opposite direction, Ben.
Yeah, indeed. Casey, what's your take? You spend your time here in DC a lot. I know you're back in the UK for the time being, but will this be a vote winner for President Trump and his administration?
So I think on the groups that we were just talking about, what I would add is just, I think that if you want to know where kind of the shadow money comes from, I think there's a good call for transparency. You've just got to do it for all sides. So you can't just do it for the groups you disagree with it because they're the calls on the other side. So I think that, you know, you kind of need one rule that fits them all, and I think that applies to the UK and the US to a degree.
Yeah, okay. I guess the argument is, and Angelina would disagree with me on this, is that the particular majority of violence does seem to come from the left. Thomas Crooks, the guy who took a pop shot at President Trump, was on the left. The guy that killed Charlie Kirk was on the left. Very rarely, I know there's one or two occasions, but very rarely do you get people on the right actually taking things to a violent level. I mean, it's a different conversation maybe when it comes to online. Maybe actually, just finally, your thoughts on that. Is it a left and right thing? Is it both sides?
You know, I think you're exactly right here. You know, I think we just saw the assassination of Charlie Kirk happen on social media, and the graphic video that took place with that. To me, there's no doubt that the left has a violent rhetoric. We saw this in a Virginia gubernatorial race with an attorney general candidate saying he wants to put 2 bullets to the head of a former Republican Speaker of the House in Virginia. So I think this is just being highlighted even more so. I've never seen a Republican not speak out, especially on things like the Minnesota killings that have happened recently. I speak to them myself all the time, so I completely agree with you.
Okay. Ashley, Angelina, Casey, Oscar, thank you very much. You two in London, I'll see you in the next hour, and my panel, of course, will stay with me here on The Late Show Live. All right, stick around on The Late Show Live tonight.
Look, I honestly, you know, you can delete this because it's late night, but
Strap in, because Boris is back. Part 2 of my exclusive interview is yet to come, and this time he's letting rip at Nigel Farage, Reform UK, and I also asked him, of course, the age-old question he gets asked all the time: are you going to come back to politics? Also tonight, President Trump might have missed out on the Nobel Peace Prize, but guess who didn't miss out? The Duke and Duchess of Montecito. Harry and Meghan, there they are. More on that next. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News. Back in a tick.
GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're
the failure is
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live with me, Ben Leo. Now, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have done it again. They've been named, for some reason, I can't imagine why, Humanitarians of the Year. The pair received the award only hours before the US President, Donald Trump, was snubbed mercilessly by the Nobel Peace Prize award judges. Well, joining us with more now is political and royal commentator Lee Cohen, who's down the line. Lee, what do you make of this? Why the hell were Harry and Meghan awarded a humanitarian award? What have they done to earn this?
Good evening, Ben. What have they done to earn it? They've done absolutely nothing. Grifters Harry and Meghan have just been crowned Humanitarian of the Year, a title so laughable. What charlatans to accept a hollow Humanitarian of the Year award while they've shown disregard for their own families, not just Harry's family, the royal family, but with Meghan's elderly father, Thomas, abandoned to an earthquake-ravaged high-rise. And Meghan cackles at a model's fall for a brand tied to child exploitation. These are not the things one normally associates with charities, with humanitarians. They're not humanitarian heroes. They're philanthropic poison.
Yeah, Lee, I'm going to bring in my good points. I'm going to bring in my panel now. Ashley Bracefield and Angelina McCarthy. Ashley, what's your take on Harry and Meghan? As an American, do you appreciate them? Do you think they deserve a humanitarian award? What's your take?
You know, I think that Americans and Brits have the same distaste for Harry and Meghan. You know, Duchess and Duke of Montecito is what we call them. But of course, you know, I think they did their route of, you know, we want privacy, we want privacy. But that's not really what's going on here. They, of course, are getting a humanitarian award after the president just got snubbed for a Nobel Peace Prize. But they're making appearances at Paris Fashion Week with Meghan being a main event for Balenciaga, stomping her out, which I find quite comical considering their recent PR incident, as well as Meghan's, you know, failures in podcast world and many others.
Angelina, your take?
I want to echo what Ashley says. I think even the left and the right, you know, Meghan Markle's debacle show really highlighted the extreme wealth gap between the rich and the poor and just how ignorant that family is. And look, Americans are not fans of the monarchy. We're not a monarchy, you know, that's why we go to the UK to visit to see what that's like, but we're definitely, you know, not a fan and don't follow that. It's not relevant to day-to-day Americans.
Lee, do you think we'll ever get a, I was telling Ashley off air how the Brits in the UK really adored Harry back in the day. You know, he was a bit of a rebel when it came to the royal family. They appreciated his sort of going against the grain style, his wild sort of partying as well. Do you think we'll ever get that old Harry back?
You know, I think that Harry is, you know, as a redhead. I think everybody kind of saw him as, you know, the younger brother, the redhead of the family that has that Spencer aspect to him, that Princess Diana, of course, side of the family. But, you know, I don't know if we'll get him back. I think he's kind of under the Markle spell, is what I'd like to say, a little bit, in my opinion.
And Lee, your take, mate?
No, and I take issue with one of the panelists just said. Americans are very admiring of the monarchy. Our own magnificent President Trump being at the head of the list, he has great respect for the monarchy. So to say that Americans aren't enamored of monarchy is completely wrong. The monarchy allows Britain to punch above its weight, and the monarch is really the best ambassador that Britain has.
Yeah, I just don't understand that they preach humanity and being compassionate and forgiveness and so on. And I always make the point, if Meghan was such a humanitarian and cared about human beings so much, she'd forgive her father, first of all, who, yes, made a silly mistake by hooking up with paparazzis in New Mexico, wherever it was, ahead of the wedding. But she would realise that he was very hurt, he's not seen his grandchildren, and she'd forgive him for it and try and make up. But what's happened since then is, of course, he's suffered various health problems. I mean, his daughter, Samantha Markle, would argue he's on death's door. But if you really are a humanitarian, go and forgive your father and introduce children, your children to their grandfather. Lee, thank you very much for your company.
Charity
really appreciate
begins
it.
at home. Charity begins at home.
Indeed. Thanks a lot, Lee. Stick around on The Late Show Live. The second part of my exclusive Boris Johnson interview coming right up, and he takes aim at Reform UK.
You know, the way to solve illegal migration is bring back Rwanda.
Yeah.
Bring back Rwanda.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning, I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We have high pressure firmly in control at the moment, which means for many it is going to stay dry. However, there is a frontal system toppling just to the north of that high pressure, and that's bringing a fair amount of wet weather and also some strong blustery winds across northern and western Scotland. So a bit cloudy, damp and windy here. Elsewhere, much lighter winds, a good deal of sunshine breaking out for many of us as we go into the afternoon, albeit some southern counties staying quite cloudy. Where we get the sunshine, temperatures rising, it's going to feel relatively warm. They're going to peak around 17, 18, possibly 19 Celsius. Obviously, under the cloud, it's going to feel fresher and markedly so, where we have those blustery winds and a bit of wet weather across parts of Scotland. That damp, blustery theme continues as we go through the end of the day. The more persistent rain perhaps affecting Orkney. Elsewhere across other parts of Scotland, it's just going to be a few outbreaks of mostly light rain. A largely cloudy theme across western parts of Northern Ireland, brighter to end the day further east, and across much of England and Wales. Actually, a lot of the cloud will be breaking up as we go later on, so lots of clear skies as we go through the end of the day and the start of the night. The rain across northern parts, that continues to edge just a little bit further towards the north and east, so mainly affecting Orkney and Shetland, perhaps fringing into Aberdeenshire as well. Otherwise, a generally dry night, and there will be clearer skies than we've had through some recent nights. So yes, that means temperatures are going to drop a little bit lower, so a chillier start to the day tomorrow morning, but also watch out for some mist and fog patches. These could be locally dense and will take a little while to clear as we go through the morning. Otherwise, tomorrow, yes, still a few outbreaks of showery rain for Orkney and Shetland. There could be a few spots of rain pushing into parts of the southeast as well, but for many it is going to be dry and often quite bright and sunny, albeit a bit of cloud pushing into some North Sea coastal areas. With the sunny skies for many, it is going to feel generally warm. Bye-bye.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point.
Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
And
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
No, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Tonight on The Late Show Live, the second part of my exclusive interview with Boris Johnson, and he takes aim. He obliterates, or tries to at least, Nigel Farage and Reform UK. Good evening to you. Breaking exclusively on The Late Show Live tonight. The future of the Tory party lies where, Boris?
So you're here to attack me for saying...
I'm not attacking you. Maybe think in the light of Charlie Kirk, that kind of language. President Trump getting a bullet to his ear, avoiding assassination on a golf course. Is the language a bit too... Oh, look at the face Boris pulled at me. The former PM, the interview, our conversation earlier today, it got a little bit heated. Part 2 airing in just a matter of seconds. And we're live, of course, in Washington, D.C., just yards from all the action at the White House, bringing you the stories America's talking about and that matter to you in Blighty, including this one.
The radical left is causing the problem. They're out of control.
Do we need the same in Britain? President Trump's unleashing America's counter-terror machine on the radical left. Plus...
You're making a big mistake.
Mr. Tyson, yes, I will talk to your wife. Trust me, do not answer the phone. A lot of people are going to be calling you, trying to get your dirty laundry.
A lot of activity. You don't know what's going on here.
I know.
Market chaos, commodities, stocks, crypto, all plunging as Donald Trump announces the US will impose a 100% tariff on China.
We launched shortly after from John Tune Airport, and within 5 minutes or so of our flight.
And a major blast at a Tennessee explosives plant has left several dead and 19 others missing. I'll have all the latest details. I'm Ben Leo. This is The Late Show Live, and welcome to the second hour, where the stories get hotter, the pace gets a little bit faster, and the brakes have been dropped. Do not go anywhere. All right, it's the moment you've all been waiting for. Here is part 2 of my exclusive interview with Boris Johnson. Enjoy. how did the Conservatives tackle the threat of reform? Because 5 months ago, Boris, you spoke to Patrick Christie's, my colleague.
Yes, great. Yes.
You said to Patrick, of course the Conservatives will recover, and Patrick said you don't see a Prime Minister Farage then, and you said absolutely not. That was 5 months ago. Since then, reform have been topping every single poll going by some significant margin. Have you changed your mind on that?
Look, let's see what happens. I still think that my party, the Conservative Party, will recover. And I tell you, I've said
how can they tackle reform?
Because we're offering serious, sensible policies on home ownership, on the economy, things that people really care about.
You don't think reforms policies are serious?
I don't know. I can't think of one, to be honest. Except they don't want to reform welfare. That's the only thing I can think of. They don't want to scrap the the cap on benefits for families with more than 2 children.
They do want to scrap that, yeah.
No, they do want to scrap it.
Yeah.
Mass
deportations.
And I think it's completely mad. You know, why should working people be paying more and more in their taxes for families that choose to have more and more kids?
Can I ask you then why they're topping the polls? Why do you think they're topping the polls? Why are the public being allured?
I don't know. You
must know.
You'd have to.
Come on, you're former Prime Minister. You must
remind you. Let me remind you of the answers I normally give. Well, when I was Prime Minister, can you remember what they were in the polls?
Reform.
Can you remember?
I think
I'm going to tax your.
Probably very low, but I'd argue
they were between 0 and 3%.
Farage wasn't leader.
Hovering between 0 and 3%.
I'm not here to defend reform, but I don't think Farage was leader at the time. It was Richard Tice, maybe. Farage came a bit later.
What I'm saying is they're on 0%, okay, and which is where they should be and where they will be again.
Okay.
So, but seriously, look. I mean, you know, my anxiety about all these parties not just in our country, but if you look at AFD, look at Reform, look at Le Pen, where I think they're all particularly worrying is on foreign policy in Ukraine in particular, and on Putin. And there I look back at some of the things that Reform have said about NATO provoking the war in Ukraine, and I shudder, right? And I really care about.
So you don't think that's a valid argument for the conflict in Ukraine?
No,
you have no empathy.
I think
Putin's a despot dictator. We all agree with that, but you don't have any empathy with the suggestion that NATO were encroaching on their borders. No.
Total rubbish. Putin launched that war as an act of aggression to distract from all his domestic failures, and because he wants to rebuild the Russian Empire. He knew fine well that Ukraine was not going to join NATO in a month of Sundays. There were about 4 or 5 countries in NATO that would have vetoed it flat out. France, Germany, Hungary, everybody was going to say NATO. It was complete nonsense.
How does this war end?
It was complete nonsense, and it is really, really worrying to think that you could have Putin apologists running this country. I don't think it's going to happen. I stick with.
Are you calling Farage a Putin apologist?
Yeah, sure.
Do you not think that kind of language, Boris? I mean, so last night on Question Time, Zach Polanski, the new Green Party leader, I'm sure you're a big fan of his. He said that reform.
Sorry, if you say.
He said he was a far-right Nazi party. Keir Starmer called Farage the enemy. David Lammy went on the airwaves and said that Farage was affiliated with the Hitler Youth. Do you not maybe think in the light of Charlie Kirk, that kind of language, President Trump getting a bullet to his ear, avoiding assassination on a golf course, is the language a bit too much?
What do you call saying that NATO was responsible for provoking the war in the Ukraine and saying that...
Who said that? Farage?
Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah.
I don't recall that.
Of course he did. And what do you call saying that you admire the way Putin's been handling the war in Syria?
Yeah. Well, again, I'm not here to defend Nigel, but I think
you're here to attack me for saying
I'm not
calling him a Putin apologist. I think that comes sweetly in the definition of apologising for Vladimir Putin, and I really, really think it's wrong.
Yeah.
And it's so that is for me the biggest foreign policy, or the biggest issue we face.
Reform,
we really. I have the other concern is that look, I don't think there's a credible economic policy.
Robert Jenrick said there was no white faces in a part of Birmingham, and he had an issue with that. Is that a sensible thing to say? I mean, have you got a problem with that? Our viewers didn't, just FYI.
Look, I think he was just making an observation about the place he was in.
Why are people upset with what he said?
I think I think honestly, here's what I think about that. I think that as a society, we are far too bruise easy about people saying things that they think. and as far as I can make out, Rob Jenrick was saying something that he was just actually honestly saying what he'd seen in a particular part of the country, and it was a statement of fact. And I don't think actually anybody challenged him much on his account.
No, I think he's.
So if they didn't challenge him on his account, then why can't he say it?
I think. Yeah, he was just talking about assimilation and integration. I think most Arabians would agree with that. Talking of sort of Islamification of cities and so on, in Italy, Giorgia Meloni, she's plotting to ban the burqa. Of course, you joked some years ago about women in burqas looking like letterboxes many years ago.
Yes, but that was in the context of an article that actually said that I didn't want to go around banning things.
Yeah. So you wouldn't support Meloni?
I'm more on the side of freedom. I think where I do have a problem is if you know. I think if somebody came into my constituency office when I was an MP and I had a complete surgery with them and I couldn't see their face at all.
It's a security risk, isn't it?
I think it's a bit difficult. You know, maybe in schools it's a bit difficult.
Would you? So no ban to a burqa in the UK, as it's.
I think
halal as well.
I'm against banning things because. I'm against imposing dress codes on adults too much, you know?
Yeah.
We're a free country. But I mean, Hamas doesn't let, women go around with their heads uncovered.
No.
Okay?
Okay.
So, you know,
all right.
We don't want to get into the sort of Hamas territory of imposing certain types of...
Got it. Last question. Digital ID. Pro, against, right idea?
I think it'll be HS2 online.
Is it not similar to COVID passports, to vaccine passports?
It will just cost an absolute fortune, and I don't know what problem it's trying to solve. I don't know what problem it's trying to solve.
Well, they claim it's illegal migration, but
the way to solve illegal migration is bring back Rwanda.
Yeah.
Bring back Rwanda. We face a nightmare of thousands and thousands of people coming across the channel on boats. We could have fixed it. We should fix it if we had the Rwanda policy, which is basically don't let them even bounce on you. Hit them back on the volley.
The Home Office emailed everybody last night saying returns deals off the ground. Guess how many people they've returned, Boris? And also they cited Rwanda.
You said 26.
26. Right, I'll let you go. How's the family? Are you well? Are you missing politics? Mine are fine. I'm missing my voice.
Yes, all good.
There was a poll from More in Common showing that if Jenrick was leader, the Tories would have no bounce. If Kemi stayed, no bounce. And if you returned, guess what the bounce was?
I have no idea, but I'm going to bounce off. I'm going to bounce back to Britain.
6%. Are you coming back, Boris?
I'm going to bounce back. I'm certainly coming back to London. I've got to go there now.
Appreciate it. There we go. The only bounce he enjoyed was getting out the studio and back home to Blighty. On those claims of Nigel Farage being a Putin apologist, GB News approached Reform UK for a comment tonight, but are yet to hear back. Let me know your thoughts on that interview. gbnews.com/your say. Joining me live again in London is the former advisor to Boris Johnson, Oscar Redrop, and the Washington editor of The Times, Katie Balls. Oscar, is it wise for Boris Johnson to be going around calling Farage a Putin apologist, even if it were true, which many people would say is absolute BS? It's not going to change the polling, is it? Do the Tories need a new line of attack?
Look, it's something that the Labour Party believe anyway. I don't know if they've polled it or not, knowing their luck, probably not. It's an area that the Labour Party tend to go at Farage and Reform on as well. I don't think it quite works. I don't think it quite sticks. Farage, look, this is the thing, and we do need to give politicians a bit of the benefit of the doubt, including Boris, I may add. A decade can pass, times change, situations change, wars happen, geopolitical forces change, and I think Reform's line and policy on the Ukraine-Russia conflict is pretty clear at this point. What I would say, I agree with Boris on, and this is a real challenge for Reform, I think, and I think Kemi pushed this along the tracks a little bit as well, is do they have the seriousness of thought on the economy? Are they going to be able to put together that economic plan and that experience that is required to do that in the years coming forward for the next election? I think the jury is very much still out on that.
Well, there's a long way to go, I guess. Casey, what do you make of Boris's response when I questioned his language? I was saying, look, Keir Starmer's calling Farage the enemy. David Lammy went on the airwaves and said that, the old Hitler Youth thing as well. It comes off the back of Charlie Kirk. President Trump's avoided a bullet twice. He seemed a little bit rattled with that suggestion.
Yeah, he didn't really want to go there. And then I think it was interesting in one of the other conversations you had, it was again about his language when you were talking about Meloni, Italy and burqas, and you mentioned the column that he'd written where he'd compared women wearing burqas to looking like letterboxes. And he was very quick to say, oh, but that was because I was defending their right to wear them. So I think that he had an argument he wanted to make on freedom of speech, and I think almost being a freedom of speech pluralist, but at the same time trying to say, but I'm not actually being as offensive as you might think I am being in these ways.
OK, I'm going to bring in my DC panel now, Ashley Bracefield and Angelina McCarthy. Hello both, welcome back. What did you take from that, Ashley? Has Boris still got it? Has he got some mojo, do you think? Is he any benefit at all to the Tory cause?
Well, I think he still has some spunk, specifically being out of politics, I would say. But, you know, I think old Boris might have a point with the burqa situation within Britain. You seem to have a massive immigration issue going on within the country itself, specifically from countries in the Middle East. So,
would you ban the burqa?
I don't know if I'd ban the burqa, but, you know, I think that you might have to look at an immigration problem that's happening in your country, that's for sure.
Well, so as an American, tell us your perception of our immigration problem. I mean, it's obvious to Brits, but I want to see your perspective here from this side of the pond.
Well, I mean, from my side of the pond, we have an immigration problem as well. And, of course, we have the Trump administration, which the majority of Americans voted in, mainly on the issue of immigration. So I think Keir Starmer has had to change his tone specifically on this issue to make, you know, people in Britain happy in general. So I think that's not really a liberal take within the United States itself. And so I would say Keir Starmer, who leans liberal in a lot of ways, he's taking that immigration take from, you know, the Democrats that won't say anything about it.
Yeah, well, he's tried to change the tone. He mentioned the sort of infamous island of strangers phrase earlier this year. Then he bottled it a couple of days later and went back on it. So, I mean, that's what happens when you have a man who doesn't really believe or know what he believes in. He just goes with the wind. Angelina, would you ban the burqa in the United States? Italy wants to do it. Giorgia Meloni there wants to do it.
I wouldn't ban the burqa. It's freedom of religion. America was founded on the principle of freedom of religion, and I would uphold that. Whether you're Muslim, Christian, or Jewish, freedom of religion stands.
OK. Katie, where do the Tories go from here? Because Boris was quite confident that Kemi should be leading the charge. I asked him how they're going to tackle the rise of reform. He still believes. So he told Patrick Christys 5 months ago, the Tories will recover, Nigel Farage won't be PM. He said he's not changed his mind on that, despite reform leading every poll by some way since then. Is Boris just a little bit deluded?
Well, I think there's things that you say on the record and there's things you say privately. And, of course, there's always been speculation, which you touched on in the interview, about a potential Boris Johnson return. And you will speak to supporters of Boris Johnson and they will say, well, actually, you know, if the Nigel Farage problem doesn't go away, Boris Johnson might be the answer, because if you look at last time he was in, look at where reform were, look at how he dealt with, you know, the Brexit party and so forth in 2019, this is what the party needs. I think one of the things I've thought is very interesting watching over from DC of what's happening in Westminster is some of the figures that Reform are taking in from the Tory party. And you look at Nadine Dorris, you look at Jake Berry, some of these characters you think, well, you know, how are you picking these Tories in different levels? And one theory I've heard is Reform really don't want Boris Johnson to return, so they're trying to get all of Boris's people in a way over to Reform, and then there's not really a route for Boris Johnson to ever make that comeback.
Oscar, what's your take on the big Boris comeback? I did mention that More in Common poll to him, which said that if Jenrick was leader, there'd be no bounce. If Kemi stayed as leader, no bounce. But if Boris came back, 6-point bounce, getting a lot closer to Reform.
Yeah, I mean, look, like, this is the thing, and Boris, don't get me wrong, Farage, that's why it's very hard in the political space here in the UK to almost have the two of them at the same time, because they take up this kind of this space in our politics for charisma, which is very short on the ground. So there's a reason why people love to, you know, kind of fantasize almost about, you know, if Boris came back, what would happen? Boris coming back, maybe. And they don't do it for someone like, you know, Rishi Sunak or Theresa May. There's a reason for that. It's because Boris has an X factor and a cut through that I think is still there. And I think his X factor and cut through and that kind of wow factor is generational. There has not been a politician in the UK of his generation that has had it more than him. The question is, and you know, I think probably in private, he's probably quite happy just watching on at the moment, and genuinely, you know, being, I think, quite infused by Kemi's performance at conference. And the one thing I would say, though, Ben, and this is, you know, this is something for reform as well in the Venn diagram, that there are similarities here. I think Boris, more than anything, was devastated that levelling up, and God, I feel like I've just dusted off a history book by even saying that out loud, but the levelling up agenda never got off the ground properly. And I think he would love to see that overseen. And like, that's something that reform should seriously think about and tap into as well.
Well, that's why, Oscar, I have a small amount of sympathy for him, because he won the massive majority, of course, and then he had to deal with COVID. Yes, he messed up on COVID. Yes, he tried to introduce vaccine passports. I don't agree with him at all with the policy he went after, although he did initially, it's reported, want herd immunity. So if he just stuck to his guns on that, if he stuck to his guns on his rhetoric to do with migration, if he stuck to his guns on net zero instead of leading us down this deranged path, he could have been one of the greatest prime ministers in British history, but he bottled it. He absolutely bottled it. And the one word today from senior politicians in the UK have been texting me off the back of this Boris interview is just disappointment. Just disappointment. They expected so much more. He had the world at his feet, and you know, he blew it. Guys, thank you very much for your company. Casey, Oscar, we'll catch up fairly shortly, and also Angelina and Ashley, you'll be sticking with me here on The Late Show Live. Coming up just in a tick.
There's no Antifa. This is an entirely imaginary organization. There is not an Antifa. This is no different than if they announced they rounded up a dozen Decepticons.
I'd love to get the panel's thoughts on this. As President Trump wages war on the left, some people in America don't think Antifa exists. What do you think? gbnews.com/your say. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News. Department of Homeland Security social media videos. That is the equivalent of our Home Office in the UK. Can you imagine this? Can you imagine going on social media and seeing the Home Office with these kind of videos? Deportations will continue. In recent weeks, they've been saying America is for Americans, reclaim the homeland, etc., etc. They are on one hell of a mission. And today, the President of America, President Trump, and his administration are saying, "Dear Antifa, we are taking our country back." That was the DHS, of course, who posted on X today, along with that clip, the music clip from Rihanna's S&M. Well, discussing this now is my latest guest. It's going to be Julio Rosas. Julio, good evening. Thanks for your company. Just explain, please, what the Trump administration is doing here. They're going after radical left organisations such as Antifa, labelling them domestic terrorists. Explain what's going on.
Well, we basically laid it out when we were at the White House on Wednesday, and that is the fact that this group exists. It exists here in the United States. It exists in Europe. It's very active in the UK. And what they're doing is they're going after the support networks that enable these people to be out there for a very long time. You know, most people have a 9-to-5 job that would prevent them from being outside, let's say, an ICE facility for days on end or weeks on end. And so by going after the support networks, that's going to hamper their ability to carry out violent attacks or interfere with operations. I mean, just today, outside Chicago in that ICE facility in Broadview, people were back out there trying to do, blocking the driveway, trying to interfere. They weren't too successful this time because the state and local police have been very ready for them because it's been so chaotic the past month. But that's it in a nutshell. I mean, these groups have had free reign in some cities for quite some time. They were very active in 2020. I covered those riots. I was in Portland back then. I was just in Portland, Oregon this past weekend. So that's what it is. If you go after the support networks, that's going to hamper their ability to do their criminal activity.
And they're looking into the likes of George Soros as well, who, of course, they funded groups in Britain. Well, Soros, his Open Society Foundation, has funded groups in Britain before, anti-Brexit groups. He's also funded Black Lives Matter here in the United States. But, Julio, Jimmy Kimmel says that Antifa is just a made-up idea. So apparently the Trump administration are chasing ghosts. They don't exist, Julio.
Yeah, Jimmy Kimmel says a lot of things, and that's why a lot of people ignore him. People that actually have a clue of what's going on, and look, this is expected. And again, that's another reason why we had the roundtable at the White House. It was to force the mainstream media to actually acknowledge that this group exists, because it's not just Jimmy Kimmel; it's a lot of people within positions of power. So, Democrats in Congress, Democratic governors, to the mainstream media. So it's not even just late night. "Quote unquote" comedy hosts, but I don't know. I don't know how many other ways to say it. I mean, this is a group that exists. It's very decentralized. Don't get me wrong. There is no national leader. There's no national spokesperson. But that's on purpose. It's on purpose to make it harder for law enforcement to go after them, because these groups exist to commit criminal and terrorist acts against the federal government. They were doing that during the BLM riots, and 5 years ago they were active with the anti-Israel, pro-Hamas protests, after October 7th, and now they're using the anti-ICE sentiment to further their agenda. So, I mean, it's ridiculous that I have to keep saying it over and over again, because it's like I said, the sun exists, right? I mean, but there are people who will tell you straight face, the sun does not exist, as an example.
Yeah. Julio, I'm going to bring my panel in here, Ashley Bracefield and Angelina McCarthy. Angelina, do you think Antifa exists?
Yes, Antifa does exist. It's a decentralized organization.
Consensus.
It definitely does. Look, I was someone who was on the ground reporting during the riots back in 2019. And during this time, Antifa was a thing, but you also saw right-wing groups out there. You had the Proud Boys, you had Patriot Front, you had Blood Tribe. So to say that there is only organized violence on the left is just frankly not true. So why are they just targeting organizations like Antifa and not targeting these other organizations that are affiliated with domestic terrorism, such as the Turner Diaries, which is it's a propaganda book that's used to support the national replacement theory, that ethnic minorities are replacing. It's something that's used in white supremacy groups and in Nazi groups in America. So why target Antifa and not them?
Well, even the UN,
I can answer that. I can answer that.
Go on, Julio.
Well, it's because Antifa is very active. The Proud Boys haven't been a thing since after January 6th. They got heavily crushed after January 6th. And I know that because I also covered that as well. So, the Proud Boys haven't been a thing. Patriot Front, they show up randomly. They don't do anything as far as I know. They just march around and then they leave, right? I mean, they haven't laid siege to federal buildings week after week like we've seen in Los Angeles and Portland and Chicago. I mean, that's why this is a new focus for the administration, because this threat has continued for decades.
And call me a conspiracy theorist. I mean, there's various videos of, was it Patriot Front and whoever else? They all look like feds and FBI, all dressed the same. They walk very strangely. There's a litany of videos online. They don't look like normal people, and they go around spouting the most stereotypical stuff that you'd expect from some so-called far-right group. Ashley, tell me about the influence of George Soros in the US. For viewers at home in Britain who may not know about Soros and his money, have you any idea about him and his influence in the US? Funding district attorneys all across America.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're seeing this happen with the Charlotte Rail incident with Irina, the Ukrainian girl that died. Multiple Democratic cities across the United States funded with these DAs that are liberal leaning, that are not putting forth the lawfare, and that should be dealt towards these repeat offenders. 40 times, a girl in Columbia, South Carolina, was murdered by a man, just execution style. He had over 40 offenses against him. This is all George Soros funded, obviously, in these blue cities. And so, this Antifa, this notion that Antifa doesn't exist. Okay, go tell the journalist with a black eye that just was at the White House testifying before the president, that has been reporting on this for many years, that this group is violent. They are infiltrating. We just talked about it earlier. A college professor going with a handgun to an Antifa protest. That's how far they've infiltrated our society in general. So I think, yes, the left definitely has a problem with Antifa setting storefronts on fire and with law enforcement officers being harmed by this group.
Angelina, is the Soros influence in the US an issue for you? Are you aware of these prosecutors who are funded by Soros? They're getting far, far left each time, and the argument is they're basically ignoring crime. So as Ashley just said, you've got people who are committing dozens and dozens of crimes, being let go. And as we saw in, was it South Carolina, the Ukrainian girl? You know, that guy should have been banged up at South Carolina a long time ago, but he was let free to roam the streets of America.
What I will say is that, you know, I know George Soros, he is from Poland, he's Jewish, he's also Jewish, and there's a lot of conspiracy theories around that. So with George Soros specifically, I can't say anything. What I can say is I disagree with the Democratic Party, and they aren't being as forceful, and they are too lenient in many ways when it comes to crime, and they aren't protecting citizens. So something needs to change, and that's also how Trump got elected, because the people of America felt that something needed to be changed. Now, do I agree with his approach? Definitely not. I have my own qualms against his approach, but the Democrats aren't doing their job either, and I can definitely say that with confidence.
Julio, you were shaking your head a bit there, I think. What's your take?
It's not a conspiracy theory that, you know, the Soros network, I mean, it's more of his son now, but George Soros historically has funded these pro-criminal DAs in the aftermath of 2020. There was a huge crime spike. The riots stopped eventually, but then everyday crime skyrocketed. I covered a lot of that in the inner cities in the years after that. And you see time and again, these pro-criminal DAs having sweetheart deals for criminals, and they were elected in part because of the money that the Soros network funded to them. So, I mean, I don't understand why this idea that he's, you know, they say, well, he's Jewish, so therefore there's conspiracies around him. It's not a conspiracy theory. There's a literal money trail with this, and it's had disastrous effects from Los Angeles to, you know, Chicago, all these other places. I mean, San Francisco got so fed up that they got rid of their pro-criminal DA. I mean, and San Francisco is a very deep blue area. Are you going to say that they're conspiracy theorists for complaining about, you know, this guy shoveling money so that criminals can roam free? I just don't buy that for 1 second.
Yeah. And also Soros, I'll say again, he's had dealings with the UK as well. Of course, Soros infamously shorted the pound. He broke the Bank of England back in the 90s. That's how he made a lot of his money. So he's got no love for Great Britain. And he gave nearly £1 million to the Best for Britain organisation, which was an anti-Brexit campaign group. So I'd argue he doesn't care about Britain. He's acting against Britain's interests, and he's much more prominent, of course, this side of the pond in the United States, and his son now as well. Who's his son going out with? Was it Hillary Clinton's old aide? Ashley, do you remember what's her name?
I think Huma Abedin.
Huma Abedin.
Huma Abedin.
Yeah. All right, Julio, thank you very much. Julio Rosas, the national correspondent for Blaze Media. Really appreciate your company. Thank you, buddy. Coming up next on The Late Show Live.
We launched shortly after from John Tune Airport, and within 5 minutes or so of our flight, we can see a large cloud of smoke.
To Tennessee for the latest on that explosion. You can see on your screens now, if you're watching from home, terrible scenes. The smoke billowing, the flames burning, which is feared to have left multiple people dead and many still missing. The death toll could still rise. We get all the latest details in just a sec on The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning, I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We have high pressure firmly in control at the moment, which means for many it is going to stay dry. However, there is a frontal system toppling just to the north of that high pressure, and that's bringing a fair amount of wet weather and also some strong blustery winds across northern and western Scotland. So a bit cloudy, damp and windy here. Elsewhere, much lighter winds, a good deal of sunshine breaking out for many of us as we go into the afternoon, albeit some southern counties staying quite cloudy. Where we get the sunshine, temperatures rising. It's going to feel relatively warm. They're going to peak around 17, 18, possibly 19 Celsius. Obviously, under the cloud, it's going to feel fresher and markedly so, where we have those blustery winds and a bit of wet weather across parts of Scotland. That damp, blustery theme continues as we go through the end of the day. The more persistent rain perhaps affecting Orkney. Elsewhere across other parts of Scotland, it's just going to be a few outbreaks of mostly light rain. A largely cloudy theme across western parts of Northern Ireland, brighter to end the day further east, and across much of England and Wales. Actually, a lot of the cloud will be breaking up as we go later on, so lots of clear skies as we go through the end of the day and the start of the night. The rain across northern parts, that continues to edge just a little bit further further towards the north and east, so mainly affecting Orkney and Shetland, perhaps fringing into Aberdeenshire as well. Otherwise, a generally dry night, and there will be clearer skies than we've had through some recent nights. So yes, that means temperatures are going to drop a little bit lower, so a chillier start to the day tomorrow morning, but also watch out for some mist and fog patches. These could be locally dense and will take a little while to clear as we go through the morning. Otherwise, tomorrow, yes, still a few outbreaks of showery rain for Orkney and Shetland. There could be a few spots of rain pushing into parts of the southeast as well, but for many it is going to be dry and often quite bright and sunny, albeit a bit of cloud pushing into some North Sea coastal areas. With the sunny skies for many, it is going to feel generally warm. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome back to The Late Show Live with me, Ben Leo. Now, 19 people are missing after an enormous blast at an explosives plant in Tennessee. The explosion was heard from miles away, and the scenes, the pictures are now on your screen here. Really troubling, actually. It was heard from miles away, including in neighbouring counties. Local Sheriff Chris Davis gave this update moments ago. The Bureau of ATF and FBI are, quote, handling the scene.
I described the building. There's nothing to describe. It's gone. It's, again, it's the most devastating scene that I've seen in my career.
All right, let's get more with political strategist Scotty Nell Hughes, who joins us live from Tennessee. Scotty, first of all, condolences. Really sorry to see these scenes where you are, where you live in your home. Just tell us, please, the update, the latest. What's going on?
Well, the latest is I'm about 45 minutes away from the blast site, and this was something that was heard, like you mentioned, several counties away. They are still looking for the 19 individuals that was set to be at work that day. I'll be honest with you, you look at those scenes, you look at what the before pictures are and the after, and you obviously, your heart sinks because you know it's going to be if they haven't found them by now, it's probably a good chance that they won't. Let me set the scene, though, for your viewers. This is a very rural community. In fact, Bucksnort, Tennessee, it's not even a incorporated city. It doesn't really have very much into it. This was really one of the main places, one of the 3 or 4 places of business that existed in this area. And it's a very small, tight-knit community, basically a county or a province, what the people in the UK would understand. So less than 25,000 people live in the entire county, and this area, the surrounding where the explosion happened, is so small that you don't even have, it's not even incorporated enough to have a population or a typical structure of a government. So very devastating for the area. Almost every family is going to be affected in this area because this was one of the few places people could get a job.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, as you said, if it's such a small community, 19 people feared missing or dead, as you said quite rightly, Scotty, it should be affecting many, many families. Do you know much about the company, the Accurate Energetic Systems company, the firm, the factory that blew up? What do they do exactly?
Here's a really interesting part. Most people have probably never heard of this company until today. They actually produced and stored explosives for the United States military. They made dynamite, they stored dynamite. So obviously this was a place that, according to the records that I'm reading, had just been actually, had people on site and had gone through all of its safety checks back in August. So they knew that obviously this was a very dangerous situation. You're dealing with highly flammable materials there on site. Like I said, you're in a very rural area. So many people probably, if this accident was to happen in more of an urban area, it would have been probably a lot more casualties. But it was out in an urban area, but they definitely knew at the time that they were handling all explosives, and everything that I'm reading here, both locally and officially, is showing that they passed all inspections that had happened just recently. So the cause of this is going to be very, very interesting to find out when that happens, when that's released.
Scotty, just tell us, please, who the ATF police are. I'm a Brit. I've been in DC 5 or 6 weeks now. I've never heard of the ATF police. Who are they?
So ATF stands for Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. They're the main branch of the United States law enforcement that come in. They're a federal agency, but they obviously have local offices. And where Bucksnort is located, it's right outside of Nashville, but it's on its way to Memphis. So they probably called in both the Memphis and the Nashville ATF, as well as the FBI, because like I said, when you're dealing with something on this size of an explosion, you need to call in both federal and state government agencies to figure out what was the real cause and the root cause, and to make sure that there was nothing nefarious involved.
OK, I'm going to bring in my panel now, Ashley Bracefield, reporter for the Daily Caller, and Angelina McCaughey, the journalist and broadcaster, to have a chat with you. Ashley, what were your thoughts when you saw this story breaking this evening?
Right, well, I wanted to see exactly what they produced in its various high explosives for the Department of War, actually. Specialty products, even, is what I saw in the Daily Caller's reporting specifically on this. Of course, this is a area that, like she said, was rural, just west of Nashville. So, there's kind of these businesses that a lot of the communities go and work at, and a lot of these places, I'm from Georgia, I kind of know the area myself pretty well. But, I think it's really disturbing to see something like this happen. It's a tragedy in a small community, which, hurts my heart to see specifically. And, I pray for those 19 individuals, and hopefully, they can recover something from them.
And Angelina, I mean, it could be a massive death toll. Hopefully it's not as high as 19, but 19 feared dead or missing.
Yeah, it's an absolute disaster. And my heart goes out to the families who are suffering and those who are still missing their loved ones. I hope that they are recovered. Yeah, it's just an absolute tragedy to read stories like this,
Yeah, apparently, Scotty, the plant was handed a $120 million contract recently. What was that for? Do you know?
Well, obviously, there's been some changes with the new administration, with the new Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, who, oddly enough, does live also in this area. He's about 5 miles down from where I'm located right now. So about 40 minutes from the splash zone. Not saying that has anything to do with each other, but just to kind of give you the context that this is obvious. And we are about 2 hours away from Fort Campbell, which houses the 101st Airborne. In fact, the county that this was located in does have residents that do travel up to Fort Campbell as well. So this is actually a very military-involved area, very region in the area. So that the fact that a company like this would be honored with a contract like that, it just speaks very highly to how much involved they try to involve local businesses to our economic community development here in Tennessee on the federal level.
Yeah, Scotty, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. And as I said, sending our best wishes here on the Late Show Live to you and the community down in Tennessee. And hopefully we'll catch up soon. Scotty Nell Hughes, political strategist. Let us know what you think about that. gbnews.com/your say. The scenes look absolutely devastating, and I just hope it's 19 feared dead or missing. I really just hope the death toll is as limited as can be. Still ahead on the Late Show Live, we'll dive headfirst into the newspapers in just a tick, hours of course before they hit the shelves. And also, do you remember the chap outside the Turkish embassy in London who was arrested and charged for burning the Quran? Well, he's got off. He's won his appeal and now he is a free man. But it does raise a big question, a big debate about free speech. Should you be allowed, and I'm keen to hear my American panel's thoughts on this, should you be allowed to burn the Quran without consequence? This is the Late Show Live, only on GB News. Back in a sec. Welcome back to the Late Show Live. No breaks, of course, in this second hour, you lucky so-and-sos. Let's look at the first front pages from tomorrow's newspapers. Splashing on the front page of the Daily Mail, the headline reads, "The China Spy in My Office" by top Tory. It's been revealed that a parliamentary researcher accused of spying for Beijing was at the heart of government policy on China. I mean, what is it with China? First of all, we have the Labour Party scandal, the Keir Starmer scandal, the collapse of that court case. Now the Tories are involved. Of course, there's been Labour MPs before accused of taking bungs from China. They're building the massive embassy in London where they won't tell planning officers what the hell they've got going on in the basement and the lower floors. In the Times tomorrow, Israel begins Gaza retreat. A fragile ceasefire in Gaza appeared to be holding strong last night after Israel completed the first stage of its withdrawal and thousands of Palestinians began trekking home. The front page of The Sun tomorrow touches on the funeral of Ricky Hassan, the boxer. "Live forever in our hearts, Ricky," reads the headline. Oasis star Liam Gallagher said farewell to his good friend in a touching tribute yesterday at Ricky's funeral, which has been described as star-studded. The New York Post headline reads, "Learning no lessons," as they report on a suspected Antifa professor who compared the feds, the authorities here, the police, to Nazis and brought a loaded gun to a nice protest. But according to the likes of Jimmy Kimmel, if you listen to Jimmy Kimmel and you enjoy his show, I don't know who would, Antifa don't exist. They are a make-believe thought in your head. Let me know your thoughts, gbnews.com/your say. Joining me for one last time from our London studio is the former number 10 advisor Oscar Redrop and the editor of, the Washington editor of The Times, Katy Balls. Katy, I almost gave you a promotion then to editor of The Times. Who is the editor of The Times? Is it Tony Gallagher these days?
It is, but I'll let him know that we've just changed it around.
Oh, good. Say hello to Tony. He was my old editor at The Sun. He's a good man with an addiction to news. Katy, what stories caught your eye on the front of the papers or the inside?
The China stories caught my eye on the front of the Daily Mail. The China Spy in My Office by Top Tory, because coming from DC, I'm just back briefly, but this is a story which is obviously engulfing the media in the UK, but yet I'm hearing people talk about it on the American side too. And there's lots of Republicans, administration figures who think that the Labour government's approach to China has already been a bit soft when you look at things like the proposed super embassy for China, and then they see this story and lots of mystery and intrigue as to why exactly this case involving the alleged spies fell apart, questions that haven't been answered. And I think there is a risk that it starts to affect how other countries see the UK if the questions aren't answered sufficiently.
Yeah, Oscar, so this story in the Mail says a parliamentary researcher accused of spying for Beijing was at the heart of government policy on China. Chris Cash is the guy's name. Received high-level briefings from former MI6 spies, ambassadors and ministers gaining extraordinary intelligence on China-related policies. Do we have a China problem, Oscar, in the UK?
I think in this case, more generally, yeah, absolutely. And I think in this case we do too. I think we also saw, without getting my tinfoil hat on too early in the morning, but we saw Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves make a big play in Beijing with a big visit. I think they've got another one planned quite soon. And it does just feel as though something that the evidence felt incredibly nefarious. Ultimately, spying in the heart of Parliament, the heart of government, and then all of a sudden it's kind of been torpedoed. And I know. From my time with Boris, I kind of know when a scandal isn't going to go away, and some of them arise very suddenly and don't go away. Sometimes they arise very suddenly and then dip. This one's an interesting one. This is a slow burn. This is a slow build that is not going away. Something doesn't appear right, and the line from the Labour government and Keir Starmer and number 10 at the moment is just that, well, look, we're just dealing with what it was then. It was when the Conservatives were in power. I don't think that works. I think Jonathan Powell has serious questions to answer. I think Stephen Swinford at the Times has had a really good exclusive on that this evening in the UK. And it's going to be, Keir Starmer's been in India, so he's been able to slightly bypass this, but it's not going away. And I think we're going to hear more and more. I think we're going to hear more details leaked potentially. And I don't want to overcook it, but this could be a real critical issue for Keir Starmer.
Yeah, the detail in the Mail tomorrow, the colour is the shadow National Security Minister, Alicia Kearns, has told the Mail that she was targeted in an alleged spying operation and her fears resulting from it. So in one alleged spy dossier were the details of the hotel where she stayed in Taiwan on a fact-finding trip as chairman of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee. In an exclusive interview with the Mail tomorrow, Ms Kearns told how she worries she may have been bugged during the 2022 trip after China threatened her that her visit would result in repercussions. I'm just going to bring my DC panel in now, Ashley Bracefield and Angelina Mackay. Ashley, does the US have a China problem? I know Donald Trump's been very, very tough on China. Tonight, actually, whacking 100% tariffs on China. That's a slightly separate issue, but Trump has been obsessed with China for decades, hasn't he?
Right, yeah, no, I think we have a China problem. That's easy to say. We have Chinese students at our universities that are actively spying on our country. They are spying on our military bases consistently. Maybe many of you remember the balloon incident that happened during the Biden administration. I think it's pretty apparent what's happening with China. They have no bounds. students, and the president even, warning them that we're not going to allow Chinese students to come to the United States during the first tariff talks. And now we have a little bit different rhetoric of, the president saying, hey, we're putting 100% tariffs on you now. And maybe that's another factor that comes back into play, and we strip those Chinese students out of American universities.
Angelina, your take?
Yeah, to echo what Ashley said, we do have a China problem. Like the incident in 2023, you saw the air balloons going through our skies to collect information on Americans. But with that said, is another tariff the right approach for America to take? And I think that's the bigger question, especially right now. We have a government shutdown. People aren't getting paid. We have Christmas coming up. So is that the best action to take, to add another 100% tariff onto China and have inflation increase?
Okay, can I just, Casey and Oscar, you might not be too familiar with the story, but I want to talk about the chap who burnt the Quran outside the Turkish embassy in London. He was charged, of course, and fined. He's now won his appeal. Oscar, is this a win for free speech?
Look, I'm really conflicted on it. I'm really conflicted on it. I think the religious texts being burned, there is something that steps over the line in terms of freedoms for me on that. But then again, as like Boris has talked about on your show earlier today, as a freedom-loving person, generally speaking, I don't know if the full force of the law should be whacked upon someone who does something like this. I'm really, really conflicted on it, I have to say.
Well, would he have been nicked if he'd been burning a Bible? I don't think he would have been.
I think he probably would, Ben, wouldn't he? No? Do you think? I think Bible
no, because you get. I mean, you get Christian preachers in the UK. There's a guy down in Brighton. Christian preachers being told to move on all the time and shut up because they're annoying people, and yet you get Islamic preachers in the street who are free to do what they want. Casey, what's your take on that? Do you think a Christian Bible burner would be arrested in the same way as this bloke was?
I think the truth is I'm just not sure. I think to your point, though, there's clearly been a whole string of cases where people's religious beliefs, when they're Christianity, have often found the law is against them. So if you think about, lots of cases that are brought up in America by J.D. Vance on freedom of speech, on buffer zones, silent prayer outside an abortion area. And I think that if it feels as though, there isn't parity, that it is, different rules for different religions, and, let's see if there's going to be an Islamophobia definition and so forth, then you start to get a sense that it's not a fair system, which is when things start to really go wrong.
Okay. Ashley, would somebody in America be arrested for burning a Quran outside, I don't know, the Pakistan embassy?
Well, I kind of hope not. I think that freedom of religion, freedom of speech is a key point with Americans. And so in this case, with the Quran burning, I mean, it relates, like you said, back to prayers in front of an abortion clinic, as well as flag burning in our country, which has, been a topic of conversation recently with the president. But, I see in Britain specifically, many of these comedians even being attacked and arrested over comments on X for transgender activists. So this is an ongoing conversation, I feel, in the UK that I've seen personally over here on the other side of the pond.
Angelina, is it acceptable? Is it free speech to go and burn, not necessarily the Quran, burning the Bible, whatever, is it free speech? Should you be allowed to do that without
I think in the privacy of your own home. Look, we're looking at public space, and this is public safety. And I witnessed that in D.C. when they were burning the U.S. flag, which I am wholeheartedly against burning the U.S. flag in general. But if it's in the privacy of your home, go ahead and do it. But when you're in public space, then you're risking public safety. So I think that's where the law needs to look at, is public safety versus freedom of speech.
Okay, we're going to move on because there's another story doing the rounds today. Oscar and Casey, are you okay to hang on? An Afghan migrant has been found guilty of threatening to kill Nigel Farage in a TikTok post last year. Do you remember this guy? Patrick had lots of fun with him on his show. There he is. Looks like a nice architect or a doctor or something coming across the channel. His name's Fayaz Khan. He live streamed his journey across the channel in a small boat and was arrested upon arrival in England last October. He made the threat to the Reform UK leader Nigel Farage, highlighted on YouTube in a video, and Nigel Farage said he hopes Khan, who's known as Madapasa on TikTok, thousands of followers, will now be deported back to Sweden. I mean, it doesn't look Swedish. Where's he from properly? Here's that TikTok video. Take a look.
Englishman, Nigel Pasa, don't talk about me. You not know me. I come to England because I want to marry with your sister. Don't talk about me more. I gonna come to England. I gonna mother.
So there we go, nice chap, probably from a nice family, well-intentioned, came across the channel on a small boat. This was Nigel Farage's reaction today when Madapasa was finally done in court.
Whilst there may be some genuine people that cross the channel, almost every day there are people like Madapasa that cross the English Channel and will do this country and its people, particularly its girls and women, very, very great harm.
So there we go, that was Nigel Farage's reaction. Madapasa has been done. I argue he should be kicked out of Britain. No, back to Sweden. I mean, he doesn't look Swedish for starters, actually, but wherever the hell he came from, just get the hell out.
Yeah, I mean, this guy, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Britain has an immigration problem just as much as the U.S. does in this case. And is it compatible with the culture in Britain for somebody like that to be coming into the country? You know, is it a country without borders? And is the question. And I agree with Farage with you know, just the fact that there's many good people across the channel that can come over to the UK in general, but this guy does not seem to fit that.
Would you have that guy around for dinner, Angeline?
Definitely not. I think that we need process and procedure, right? And that needs to be revamped both in America and in the UK. We need process and procedure. We need a better process and procedure here in America as well. So definitely not. I agree with Nigel on that one.
Process and procedure when it comes to what, stopping illegals or?
Stopping illegals. And look, the Democrats did have a massive open border. Tons of migrants did flood the border. Trump, on the other hand, he's zero policy. The border's practically shut down. There has to be some kind of middle ground. I don't think that it's one side or the other. There has to be a way that we can actually invest in a better system that allows the right people to come over and the wrong people not to.
Well, I would say too, I mean, over 20 million immigrants let into the country over these years. And so there's got to be a point where we have to get control of that before we can even have a talk about what we can do policy-wise to continue to have legal immigration and done the right way.
Do you see, Angelina, similar political violence from the likes of Scallies like that? I mean, he's got an AK-47 tattooed to his cheek. I mean, that seems quite common over this side of the pond. You've got sort of gangbangers and drug traffickers. I mean, you've had your fair share, right?
We have some, yes, in America. Can't deny that. There's definitely here. We definitely have drugs coming up through the border. We have coyotes. That's a major problem. Smuggling people, and then the human trafficking component of the border, which no one's really talking about. So we definitely have these types coming over again, but right now the border is shut down. So we don't have them flooding in right now.
Okay, yeah, I'd love ICE to, maybe we can send some ICE agents from Chicago over to Britain to deal with Madapasa. He's been dealt with now, but anybody else who dare, I'd love to see ICE get their hands on.
Make a few TikTok videos.
Yeah, right, yeah, definitely. Tim, good evening, Tim. You said kick him out and send him back to the Middle East. But apparently he's Swedish, Tim. I mean, I don't know what planet you're Swedish behaving like that, or, yeah, he's clearly not Swedish. Anyway, guys, thank you for your company tonight. Ashley Bracefield, the reporter at the Daily Caller, and the journalist and broadcaster Angelina Mokahi, thank you for your company, and hopefully see you very, very soon. And thank you at home for spending your night with The Late Show Live tonight. Very much appreciate your longevity at this late hour. And again, thank you to my panel. And of course, Oscar and Katie back home in Blighty. I'll see you back here tomorrow, midnight in the UK, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And I'm going on a very special trip in the morning. I'll share all the details with you tomorrow night. Good night, sweet dreams.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning, I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We have high pressure firmly in control at the moment, which means for many it is going to stay dry. However, there is a frontal system toppling just to the north of that high pressure, and that's bringing a fair amount of wet weather and also some strong blustery winds across northern and western Scotland. So a bit cloudy, damp and windy here. Elsewhere, much lighter winds, a good deal of sunshine breaking out for many of us as we go into the afternoon, albeit some southern counties staying quite cloudy. Where we get the sunshine, temperatures rising. It's going to feel relatively warm. They're going to peak around 17, 18, possibly 19 Celsius. Obviously, under the cloud, it's going to feel fresher and markedly so, where we have those blustery winds and a bit of wet weather across parts of Scotland. That damp, blustery theme continues as we go through the end of the day. The more persistent rain perhaps affecting Orkney. Elsewhere across other parts of Scotland, it's just going to be a few outbreaks of mostly light rain. A largely cloudy theme across western parts of Northern Ireland, brighter to end the day further east, and across much of England and Wales. Actually, a lot of the cloud will be breaking up as we go later on, so lots of clear skies as we go through the end of the day and the start of the night. The rain across northern parts, that continues to edge just a little bit further towards the north and east, so mainly affecting Orkney and Shetland, perhaps fringing into Aberdeenshire as well. Otherwise, a generally dry night, and there will be clearer skies than we've had through some recent nights. So yes, that means temperatures are going to drop a little bit lower, so a chillier start to the day tomorrow morning, but also watch out for some mist and fog patches. These could be locally dense and will take a little while to clear as we go through the morning. Otherwise, tomorrow, yes, still a few outbreaks of showery rain for Orkney and Shetland. There could be a few spots of rain pushing into parts of the southeast as well, but for many it is going to be dry and often quite bright and sunny, albeit a bit of cloud pushing into some North Sea coastal areas. With the sunny skies for many, it is going to feel generally warm. Bye-bye.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World with me, Alex Armstrong. Tonight I'll be joined by political commentator and head of media at the IEA, Reem Ibrahim, and GB News' senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. On Real World, Real People, Orla Minahane, a pink lady, is going to be joining me to tell me about all the protests up and down the country. And on Last Orders, comedian Lewis Schaefer goes over best moments in his career. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. But first up, here's your news.
Thank you very much indeed. Let's get you up to date with the headlines at 7 o'clock this evening. We do start with the news that broke in the last couple of hours. An Afghan migrant has been found guilty of threatening to kill Nigel Farage in a TikTok post last year. Fayaz Khan said he was coming to England to pop Mr Farage after the Reform leader posted a video of the 26-year-old arriving on a small boat. Jurors were told Khan had a very large presence online, amassing hundreds of thousands of views, and was a dangerous man with an interest in firearms. Mr Farage says he hopes Khan, who's known as Madapasa on TikTok, will be deported back to Sweden.
Whilst there may be some genuine people that cross the channel, almost every day there are people like Madapasa that cross the English Channel and will do this country and its people, particularly its girls and women, very, very great harm.
Who burnt the Quran outside the Turkish consulate in London has won an appeal against his conviction. Hamid Koskun was found guilty of a religiously aggravated public order offence after burning a Quran outside the Turkish consulate in London. However, he was backed by free speech campaigners and successfully appealed against the conviction at Southwark Crown Court. His appeal was attended by the Conservative Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick, who told GB News earlier it's a potentially landmark case. The Israeli military says its troops have now withdrawn to the agreed deployment line as part of the Gaza ceasefire agreement. Thousands of Palestinians have started to return to the north of the Strip after a pause in fighting came into effect earlier, although Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said Israeli forces will remain in Gaza until certain conditions, including Hamas disarmament, are met. The first pause in fighting since March is now in effect. Hamas has until 10 a.m. on Monday to release all the hostages, after which Israel will free hundreds of Palestinian detainees. And this breaking news coming into us, multiple people have been killed, with others still missing after a blast at a military explosives factory in the US state of Tennessee. The explosion occurred at the Accurate Energetic Systems plant, an hour south of Nashville, and was heard miles away in neighbouring counties. At least 19 people remain unaccounted for. And legends of boxing, football and music were among thousands of mourners who gathered to say farewell to former world champion Ricky Hatton. Crowds lined the streets as the hearse travelled through the city in a procession before a private funeral at Manchester Cathedral. Wayne Rooney, former boxers Tyson Fury and Amir Khan, along with the Oasis frontman Liam Gallagher and several of the Happy Mondays, were in attendance to pay their respects. Hatton, who was known as the People's Champion and won world titles in the welterweight and light welterweight divisions, died last month at the age of 46. Those are your headlines. I'll be back with more at 8.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World with me, Alex Armstrong. I know I look like I'm on work experience at the moment. I had a beard clipper incident. Look, it'll grow back all right, everybody. I'm joined tonight by Head of Media at the IEA, Reem Ibrahim. I'm also joined by GB News senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. Look, first up, we're going to talk about Kemi Badenoch. Now, she's made a major speech at Tory party conference, and there was much speculation about whether or not this was going to be a do-or-die speech for her as party leader. She's pledged many things. The big pledge was abolishing inheritance tax. How do you think that's gone down with the public? Would you like to see inheritance tax abolished? We're going to be digging into all of it here. Reem, welcome to the show.
Hello, good evening, Alex.
You were there at Tory Party Conference, weren't you?
I was.
What was the atmosphere like?
You know what, on the Sunday I thought this is a bit like a funeral, isn't it? You know, it's sort of empty, there weren't that many people. The Midland Bar, which is the bar in the hotel in the conference centre inside the sort of secure zone, is normally rammed. And I thought, God, is it really that bad? Then on the Monday morning, I did my first panel out of 6 at Tory Conference, and I realised that the conference was starting to fill up, and there were so many young people. So look, I'm not necessarily too optimistic, but I do think that those people, especially people like Emily Maitlis on Twitter, going on and saying, God, the Tory Conference is completely dead, just isn't really true. Yes, it had less people than last year, but I was really, really quite impressed with the quality of the fringe events, the quality of some of those main stage speeches, especially Kemi Badenoch's speech, which I know we'll get into.
Yeah, absolutely. Nigel, you saw the pictures of the empty chairs across the conference. I mean, obviously, they've just taken a massive thumping in the general election just a year ago. Is it a good thing that Kemi Badenoch got this rousing applause? It was full for her, maybe not so full for the Shadow Chancellor, perhaps. What do you make of it all?
Well, as far as the empty seats go, you tend to find that at every party conference after somebody's lost an election badly, that after 1997, the Tories had a pretty low-level party conference then. So they'll build up. As we get nearer the election, that'll happen. As far as the cheering went, I think that Kemi's speech was actually quite good. The issue there is that she's been able to bring her opponents within the party back on side. Her big problem comes next May when local elections happen, and then we've got elections in Scotland and Wales. If she does really badly against reform, I think she's in trouble and there will be a move to unseat her. As far as the actual conference goes, lots of promises. She'd always said that she wouldn't come up with any policies till 2027, but suddenly we had loads of them in one go. I question the figures, that they seem to be, when you delve down, just a bit vague. The immigration figures, 750,000 migrants to go over the period of a parliament. That's an awful lot, and she has no idea where she's going to send them. Some of the tax breaks that she's talking about, while they sound good, how you fund them is a whole different matter.
So I disagree with that analysis of the figures on the policy side. I mean, it's really interesting, actually. Nigel's right. We saw almost nothing in terms of policy from Kemi Badenoch since the election. She had all these policy groups and she said, don't worry, just wait. We are going to come out with some policies. And then all of a sudden, we had so many just in the space of a week. We were sort of spoilt for choice in that respect. She wants to repeal the Climate Change Act to abolish net zero. Fantastic. That will ensure that we can actually increase energy supply and bills will come down. She wants to leave the ECHR, which means that we will actually be able to physically do those deportations if we want to. And really crucially in the speech this week, we saw that she said she wants to abolish stamp duty. Now, stamp duty is a tax on the transaction, right? Every time you sell a house and you want to move to another house and you buy that house, you are being taxed. So that means that that thing happens less. That transaction, that house changing hands happens less. Now, the reason why this is so important is if you are a little bit older, maybe you're an elderly couple, maybe you've just turned pension age and your children have left the house, empty nest, and you want to downsize to free up some of that equity, you can't, because if you do sell your house and buy another one, then unfortunately you're going to be taxed to the oblivion through stamp duty. And so what you do is you just sit in that house with all of those empty bedrooms instead of freeing up some of that money. So abolishing stamp duty will be the best thing for not only those people that are homeowners, but it also means that when they do downsize and they free up some of that money, pensioners will be better off. But it also means that there's a new family home ready for a new family to move in.
Well, these things are all very good and well, Reem. And Nigel, I'm guessing you might be thinking the same thing as me, but net zero, this is reform level stuff, isn't it? This is copy and paste from Nigel Farage talking about leaving the ECHR. Well, she divvied on that. She's divvied on that for 300 and something days since she became party leader. In the meantime, Nigel Farage has come out quite strong in Reform UK against it. Even Robert Jenrick in the leadership campaign said he wanted to leave the ECHR, and Kemi called it a gimmick. Is she now just playing up to Reform UK?
Yeah, I mean, most of the Tory conference was a Reform Tribute Act. And so certainly the ECHR line was something that, as you say, Reform have come up with ages ago. What's weird about that is the Tories are talking about leaving ECHR, but not the Refugee Convention. And the Refugee Convention is basically the one that puts migrants on our shores. So that was a peculiar way of doing the policy. I thought if you're going to do it, do both. Whether it'll make any difference to boats crossing is another matter. But that was weird. On the getting rid of the Climate Change Act, the danger of that is it completely wrong-foots business. Business is preparing for net zero. If it works out, we would then lead the world in technology rather than have to buy the stuff in. And you're also looking at about 650,000 jobs it could create. So industry is preparing. Now they're being told, should the Tories win the next election, they can forget all about that and go back to the old systems of fossil fuels. That is not a good way of running a country and running a business.
That isn't what that means. And look, Nigel is right in this respect, where the government have effectively told every business across the economy that net zero is what we're trying to achieve. But quite frankly, that shouldn't have happened in the first place. And when we're thinking about this in the long term,
it has happened.
Right. But this isn't about going back to fossil fuels being the 100% energy source in the UK. What it is about allowing the energy market to decide for us. Now, I'm of the view that we have to use the resources that we currently have, and actually every other country is laughing at us where they are all fracking, they are all using oil and gas, and we have that resource in the North Sea, but we basically make it impossible to use. Ed Miliband at Labour Party conference in his speech said, I want to send the frackers packing. I mean, that kind of policy would literally reduce the supply of energy and make energy bills more expensive for everybody across the country. So, repealing net zero is not about completely removing all of the renewables across the economy that we currently use. What it is ensuring that they are financially sustainable. So taxpayers should not be footing the bill for green energy, but if a private company or indeed private finance wants to finance green energy investment, then that absolutely can be the case. Because if I could just explain very quickly, the difference is that those companies have to bear that risk. Whereas when the government or taxpayers are subsidising green energy companies, they bear no risk, right? Taxpayers are footing the bill. So they can just invest in basically sham green technologies. There are technologies out there. I'm a climate optimist. I think that we will achieve that kind of security through green energy and through cleaner energy. I think nuclear is one example of that. However, taxpayers shouldn't be forced to foot the bill, and we should not make ourselves poorer.
Well, look, I agree on all on the net zero stuff. It's been a total mess for this country, hasn't it? It's left people with sky high energy bills. But let's get back to the Tories for a second, because on the front page, the day after Tory party conference started, Reem, Dominic Grieve was on the front page of the Independent saying, leaving the ECHR, this is going to be the death of the Tory party. And he might be right, because there's a lot of liberal-minded Tories, the people. I'm thinking about people on the outskirts of London, the rich and wealthy ones. He might be thinking, actually, this is not the Conservative Party anymore. How does Kemi keep those people in the party?
It's really interesting, I think, and Nigel alluded to this earlier, but I disagree with his assessment on this. I don't think the Conservative Party and at conference that they were sort of harping towards reform or celebrating reform in that way. That was completely untrue. I mean, effectively, Kemi didn't even mention, Nigel, reform. I think she mentioned reform once in her speech. And that's really crucial because they're carving themselves out. And, on energy policy, for example, reforms energy policies have been pretty bonkers, right? Taxing green energy companies, banning battery energy storage systems, and then they U-turned on it and said, actually, that's not policy.
But Rick, I want to pass this over to Nigel, because look, Kemi, the Tories are the ones that kicked off net zero and all these policies. Now they're backtracking on them, and I don't think they've done enough apology. We saw Priti Patel, she won't apologise for immigration figures. You saw Boris Johnson won't apologise for immigration figures. Does it matter if Kemi Badenoch makes these grand promises like abolishing abolishing stamp duty? Because actually, do the public trust them? Will they regain that trust in the next 4 years?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, it's the trust issue. The one thing the Reform has got going for it is that they're the new kids on the block. They don't carry any baggage. The Tories carry 14 years of baggage. So if you take, for example, their cost savings they're talking about, the idea is you could save over £30 billion on the welfare bill and on civil servants, getting rid of civil servants. Now, when Mel Stride, now the Shadow Chancellor, was the